My name is Claire. I'm 27 years old and grew up in the suburbs of Columbus, Ohio. But throughout my childhood, I had no real concept of a home. I never got to call the woman who gave birth to me Mom. She always insisted I call her Elaine. Being called Mom makes me feel old, she said. The very first time. I was only 3. A toddler, barely forming sentences, already having to correct how I addressed the only woman I was born from. Elaine used to be the cheer captain in high school. Popular, beautiful, always convinced her life was meant for more. But then she got pregnant with me at 17. She called me a mistake, right to my face, without hesitation or remorse. I remember once she scoffed and told me plainly, "If it weren't for you, I probably would have gone to UCLA." I just stood there, swallowing the ache in my chest. I was only 8 then. My dad, Thomas, was like a shadow in my life. They broke up before I could even walk. And while he tried to stay involved, Elaine never gave him a place. She'd call him a loser, and every time he came by, the air in our house turned thick, like burnt food left too long in the oven. Later, when I was 10, Elaine met a man named Brett, kind, decent, a structural engineer. They got married in under a year, and not long after that, she gave birth to my half-sister, Olivia. From the moment Olivia was born, everything changed. Elaine seemed like a completely different person. She laughed more, cooked better, even learned to bake just to decorate Olivia's picture-perfect birthday cakes. I had never seen her put in that kind of effort for me, not once. I remember my 12th birthday. I wasn't expecting much, maybe a small cake, a few balloons. Instead, she tossed a cold pizza box onto the kitchen table and said, "Don't start expecting things." I'd got Olivia's first birthday to plan next week. I bit into a slice of cold pizza, staring at the tiny candle stuck in a piece of cardboard, then turned away, so no one would see me cry. Olivia always had everything. Princess dresses, stuffed animals, her own room painted lavender with glowing stars on the ceiling. I slept in a drafty old storage room. Elaine never asked if I was cold or if I liked the wall color, or even a simple, "Are you okay?" Brett, her husband, was different. He was always kind to me. When I had a fever, he was the one who made my medicine and held a cool towel to my forehead. When I got my first A in English, he was the only one who took me out for a vanilla ice cream to celebrate. But Brett could only do so much when Elaine constantly cut off every bit of affection he offered me. She'd say, "Your real daughter is teething. Not this borrowed last name kid." She called me the borrowed last name girl. I learned to stay quiet, learned to put myself to sleep with books, learned not to trouble anyone with my feelings. Because I knew, in Elaine's eyes, I was the shadow of a mistake. The leftover evidence of a youth gone wrong. I used to think maybe if I try harder, behave better, become more impressive, she'll change. But the harder I tried, the more I realized a cold truth. It wasn't that I didn't deserve love. It was that she never planned to give it to me. At one point, I wondered if maybe I was just too sensitive, that maybe the distance, the neglect, was all in my head. But then one day, as I stood quietly during Olivia's 6th birthday, I could no longer lie to myself. The house had transformed into a fairy tale wonderland. Pastel balloons, long tables draped in floral cloth, invitations printed with her favorite cartoon characters, and a custom-made 3-tier princess cake. There was a face painter for the kids, a clown making balloon animals, and even Brett, always calm, dressed up as a friendly wizard leading a treasure hunt. I stood in the corner of the kitchen, holding a tray of lemonade cups, silently watching the woman who birthed me, or rather, Elaine, bend down and whisper something into Olivia's ear that made her giggle uncontrollably. "She's so lucky," one of the other moms whispered beside me. "To have such a wonderful mother." I just smiled. No one knew I was Elaine's oldest daughter. No one thought I, too, once hoped for a birthday like that. I was 16 that year. And my birthday party, like every year, was a cold chicken sandwich from a gas station, left on the kitchen counter with Elaine's classic line, "Don't expect anything, Claire. I've got 100 things to deal with." I once tried asking, gently, one evening when it was just the two of us, I said softly, "I don't need a fancy party, but maybe just dinner with you?" Elaine lowered her phone, squinting at me. "You want me to go into debt taking you to dinner? Do you have any idea how expensive you are? Go cry to your dad." It was always that line. Every time I opened up, she'd bring up my dad, as if the fact that he didn't marry her gave her the right to ignore my existence. But Thomas, my father, never missed the important things. Every birthday, he'd send me a small gift with a handwritten card. "Claire, you deserve all the love in the world." He wasn't wealthy, didn't have a fancy car or big house, but he was always on time every weekend, taking me out for walks, ice cream, or just sitting with me at the library. Once, when Elaine yelled at me for spilling milk, he showed up early, hugged me tight, and said, "You are not a burden, Claire. You are the light of my life." I survived on those little pockets of love, on the days he took me to used bookstores and let me pick anything I wanted. I still keep one book, red cover, worn edges, with a message in his handwriting. For Claire, the bravest girl I've ever known. Elaine never read what I wrote, never asked how I was doing in school. But with Olivia, she'd sit for hours doing math worksheets, cutting out animal shapes, even building a whole solar system model for her STEM class. I noticed. I always noticed. But what hurt the most wasn't the comparison. It was the denial. The brutal dismissal from Elaine when all I wanted was one kind look, one word of praise, or even just a sincere "how are you?" Once, I asked without thinking, "Why do you love Olivia more than me?" She looked up from her laptop, sighed. "Stop playing the victim, Claire. I don't have the energy to baby a mistake." My heart felt like it was being crushed. It took me years to understand. Some people will never see the value in others simply because they're haunted by what they've lost. Elaine didn't hate me because I did something wrong. She hated me because I reminded her of a youth filled with regret. Olivia, the daughter from a proper marriage, was in her mind the one truly worthy of love. I never blamed Olivia. She was the only one in the house who hugged me when I was sad, who secretly brought birthday cake into my room when no one was looking. I only blamed myself for taking too many years to realize there are doors you shouldn't keep knocking on if all that's behind them is cold, empty silence. I left home to start my freshman year of college in Cincinnati. The school wasn't so far that I couldn't visit, but far enough that I didn't need to come back every weekend. Elaine didn't care where I went. On the day I packed my suitcase into the car, she said just one thing: "Go to school if you want. Just don't call me asking for money." I got in the car and didn't look back. I already knew. No one would be standing there waving. Unlike her, Brett, her husband, was the first to send me an email asking how I was doing once I moved in. Olivia, my younger sister, texted me every night. "Have you eaten? Made any new friends?" And Dad called me every weekend, his voice always gentle, with a bit of humor. He'd still ask, "Is your bookshelf full yet? Want me to send a few more?" While the one who gave birth to me didn't care, those who weren't required to care showed me where I truly mattered. I tried building a life of my own, though it wasn't easy. At that time, I worked part-time at a cafe near campus to help pay tuition. On cold, late autumn nights, I'd study while wiping tables, fingers stiff but my heart lighter. Because at least I no longer had to live in Olivia's shadow. It was there that I met Ian. He was a senior, studying architecture. We met while I was working the night shift. Ian would sit in the corner by the window, sketching in an old leather notebook. One time, he drew me without asking, then handed me the sketch with the words, "You deserve to be captured." That sentence stunned me. Ian was different from everyone I'd ever known. He never asked about Elaine, never compared me to anyone. He simply said I had the eyes of someone who had been hurt, but never gave up. We dated for nearly a year. I brought him home for Thanksgiving during my sophomore year. When we walked into the house, Elaine was slicing apples in the kitchen. She turned, and the first thing she said wasn't, "Welcome home," but, "Well, didn't expect you to land someone like that." I pretended not to hear. But from that moment, her behavior was obvious, not toward me, but toward Ian. She initiated conversation, asked about his work, complimented his maturity, and then turned to me and said something that cut like a knife. "Are you sure he actually likes you? Maybe he just feels sorry for you." Ian looked at me, ready to say something, but I shook my head gently. I was used to it. It hurt, but it wasn't surprising. After that visit, Elaine sent Ian a Facebook friend request. I found out through Ian and I told him, "Just accept it. It's easier." I didn't expect that it would start a bizarre connection that dragged on for months, even after we broke up. A few weeks after Ian and I ended things, due to job placements in different cities, not because of a fight, I found out Elaine was still messaging him. At first, it was just polite check-ins. Then came love advice articles, cat memes, and cheesy quotes about fate and romance. I asked her directly. Elaine smirked and said, "Ian and I talk like two mature adults. Or are you just jealous?" I didn't answer, not because I was jealous, but because for the first time I saw clearly. To her, I wasn't a daughter. I was just a dull accessory. And if someone shone brighter, looked better, or got more compliments than her, she would find a way to steal that spotlight, no matter the cost. Even if that person was her daughter's ex-boyfriend. I used to believe that the unfairness I experienced was because Elaine didn't know how to be a mother. But no, she knew exactly how to wound. With every word, every gesture, every effort to push affection away. I can't remember the exact moment I started suspecting it. Maybe it was when Ian said it aloud, on a rainy afternoon under the awning of a small cafe near campus. "Claire," he said, his voice low, "have you ever noticed your mom seems to be competing with you?" I laughed it off. A faint, tired laugh. "What are you even talking about? Competing with me?" "Not in the obvious way," Ian continued, eyes fixed on the steaming cup in front of him. "But I've seen how she looks at you when others notice you. When you succeed, when you're happy, it seems to bother her." I said nothing. I had never thought of it like that. I always assumed Elaine was distant because she lacked warmth, lacked patience. But jealousy? Of me? Who was I, really? Other than the daughter who ruined her life. But after that day, I started paying attention. And Ian wasn't wrong. I remember the way she reacted when I received a scholarship from the university, one designed for underprivileged women majoring in social studies. While my dad called in the middle of work, his voice cracking with pride, and Brett sent me flowers with a card that read, "So proud of you," Elaine sat on the couch and said flatly, "It's just a community scholarship. Don't overdo it." I froze. In my mind, I still tried to excuse her. Maybe she's tired, maybe she doesn't understand the significance. But eventually, the pattern became too consistent to ignore. When I was accepted for a nonprofit internship in Chicago, one of only 3 chosen from over 200 applicants, I came home glowing with excitement. This time, I thought, Elaine would have to be proud. There's no way she could ignore this one. But when I told her, she just raised an eyebrow and asked, "Did they pick you for merit or for diversity quotas?" I stood there, stunned. "For the first time in my life," I answered coldly. "Probably because I wasn't white enough or well-behaved enough for you to sign me up for ballet when I was 5. The air in the living room froze. Elaine stood up, said nothing, poured herself more wine, and walked out onto the porch. From that moment on, I stopped trying to earn her approval. But I kept watching, and in every tiny detail, I saw that Ian had been right. She mocked me for cutting my hair short, saying, "Girls with cropped hair look rough, like boys." But when Olivia got the exact same edgy bob the following year, she said, "You look so modern, like a New York model." She told me I was too immature for a real relationship when I introduced Ian to the family. Then, a week later, she posted a photo of them at lunch together with a caption, "So nice having an architect friend who really gets me." When I began publishing small articles in the campus paper, Elaine never mentioned it. But when Olivia got featured on the class honor board for a drawing competition, Elaine printed the photo in color, framed it, and placed it right in the middle of the living room. Maybe it wasn't that she couldn't stand me outshining Olivia. Maybe it was that I had survived everything she did to me and was still standing. I started to understand that, to Elaine, the image of a daughter who was strong, independent, and rising on her own, that was a direct threat to her fractured sense of self. Because now, she was no longer the center of the story. She hated that I didn't need her the way she once needed to be needed, and that made her jealous. Ian saw it before I did, and maybe that's why he and I couldn't last longer. "I love you, Claire," he once said during our final conversation. "But I can't watch you keep living under that toxic shadow. You don't have to carry it alone anymore." I didn't say anything. I just nodded and let him go. Not because I didn't need him, but because I needed to step out of the darkness on my own first. So one day I could walk into the light. Without still seeing it through my mother's jealousy. I met Phil at a community conference in Indianapolis, where I was working after graduation. He was from Atlanta, the lead coordinator for a housing development project in underserved neighborhoods. At first, I thought he was the usual type. Good-looking, smooth talker, firm handshake. But Phil was different. He didn't just listen, he understood. We connected slowly over long nights after the sessions, trading thoughts on housing policy and social equity. One evening, when I told him about Elaine, about the time I celebrated my birthday with a cold slice of pizza in a quiet kitchen, he said nothing. He just placed a hand on my shoulder and asked, "Clara, what kind of mom do you want to be?" No one had ever asked me that, and right then I knew. If I ever started a family, the man beside me had to be Phil. We had a small wedding at a wooden chapel near Lake Monroe. Just a handful of close friends and family. My dad, Olivia, Brett, and a few of our dearest people. Elaine came because Brett convinced her. She sat at the back in a champagne-colored dress far too fancy for winter, her expression frozen like stone. When Phil and I exchanged vows, I glanced at her. Her eyes showed no emotion, just confusion, as if she was still trying to figure out how the unloved daughter ended up glowing at the altar, deeply loved by someone real. A week after the wedding, I invited everyone over to our new apartment for dinner. I announced the pregnancy simply, a napkin embroidered with "baby" on the way, and 2 coffee mugs labeled Mom and Dad. Brett laughed first. "Really? Claire?" He hugged me, eyes sparkling like a child about to become a grandparent. Olivia shrieked, "I knew it! I dreamed about this last week!" And my dad choked up, hand trembling as he held his glass. "You're going to be an incredible mom." Then came Elaine. She didn't touch her glass, didn't smile, just leaned back, arms crossed, and said, slowly, "So, you think you're ready to be a mother?" No one spoke. Phil squeezed my hand beneath the table. I answered softly, "I don't just think so. I know I am." Elaine sneered. I thought Olivia would be the one to make me a grandmother first, but apparently, no one laughed. I looked at her, and for the first time, I saw it with absolute clarity. She wasn't upset out of concern. She was upset that I, not Olivia, was having the first grandchild. The daughter she had always labeled the mistake was now the one carrying forward the family line. I wasn't angry anymore. I just felt sorry for her. When everyone got up to take group photos, she refused to join. As she left, she muttered, "I'm not against this. But don't expect me to hold the baby just because you think having a kid is some big deal." That night, Phil held me for a long time. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I just don't get how a mother could react like that." I rested my head on his shoulder and said quietly, "Because she's never seen me as her daughter, only as a wrinkle on the resume of her youth. But I knew one thing for sure. I wouldn't let my child grow up feeling like a mistake, the way I once did. I had a husband who truly loved me, a baby growing inside me day by day, a home built on real love, not competition. And if Elaine couldn't accept that, then that was her choice. As for me, I had chosen peace. I thought that after my pregnancy was made public, Elaine would go quiet for a while. But not even a week later, she called. Not to congratulate me, but to warn me. "Claire," she said, her voice cold like she was talking to a stranger. "Are you planning to announce this pregnancy everywhere?" I was confused. "What do you mean?" She sighed. "Getting pregnant just a week after the wedding. What will people think about this family? About me? Do you have any idea how many of my friends follow me online? They'll think I'm the kind of mother who lets her daughter get knocked up and rush into marriage to cover it up." I froze. "Are you serious right now?" "Of course I'm serious," she snapped. "I have a social standing. I'm part of the Women's Business Club. I do charity work. I've been invited to speak at city council events. I can't let the same daughter who used to be a problem drag me down all over again." I clenched the phone in my hand, my fingertips aching. "I'm not ruining your image. I'm just living my life. I married the man I love, and I'm carrying our first child. That's something sacred, not shameful." There was silence for a few seconds on the other end. Then Elaine lowered her voice, dripping with sarcasm. "Sacred? Claire, don't romanticize everything like it's some TV drama. I used to be someone important, and now, thanks to you, everyone's going to label me young grandma before Olivia even establishes her career." I couldn't take it anymore. "Then go ahead and keep building your image. But don't expect to have any part in my child's life, Claire." "No, listen to me." I cut her off, my voice shaking with anger, but no longer with tears. "If a baby makes you feel ashamed, then you don't deserve to be called their grandmother. And if my son ever asks why he doesn't have one, I'll tell him the truth. That his mother tried her whole life to earn love and got nothing but mockery and a cheap reputation in return." Silence. I hung up. No goodbye. No closing words. I just sat there, in the small, sunlit room, my belly growing each day. And deep down, I knew I'd just done the most important thing I'd ever done. Ended a long, generational cycle of pain. The next day, Elaine sent me a long message. "I'm sorry if my tone yesterday came off too harsh. I'm just concerned about the family's image. If you felt uncomfortable, maybe your pregnancy hormones are making you extra sensitive." I didn't respond. A week later, she sent another message, this time sounding more gentle. "Claire, I really want to make peace. I think you should calm down and reconsider your overreaction the other day. I'm your mother. I have the right to worry about you and the baby." I just stared at the screen and quietly deleted the message. No reply. No debate. No explanation. Because some things don't need to be repeated. A few days later, Olivia called. "Claire, Mom seems really shaken up, but I understand you. I really do." My throat tightened. "You don't have to apologize for her." "I'm not," Olivia said firmly. "I just want you to know I'm with you. And that baby on the way, they'll always have me." I held my belly, feeling the baby shift, Not a kick, just a tiny movement, but enough to remind me I wasn't alone anymore. Phil, Olivia, my dad, and Brett, they were my family. Elaine, she gave up her place. Because what she valued most was never love. It was how others saw her. I didn't need her in our family pictures, at my child's first birthday, or in any memory we'd make. Because if love doesn't come with respect, then presence becomes intrusion. And for the first time in years, I felt like I was becoming a mother, in the way I once wished my own mother had been. My baby shower took place on a warm Sunday afternoon at the end of March, in the small garden behind Brett and Olivia's house. Olivia planned every detail with care. A cream-colored cake decorated with lavender flowers, silver balloons strung through the grapevines, and a soft fabric banner reading, "Welcome, baby," glowing gently in the sunlight. Phil didn't let go of my hand the whole time. He was always gentle, but that day he was extra attentive, like he wanted to make sure I fully felt the joy of it all. I was chatting with an old coworker when I saw Olivia rushing toward me, whispering, "Elaine just arrived. And Claire, she said she has a special surprise." I frowned. "What kind of surprise?" Olivia shook her head. "I don't know, but..." Her eyes looked weird. I turned around just in time to see Elaine entering through the garden gate. She wore a shiny teal silk dress, far too flashy, and her face was frozen into a forced smile. But what stopped me cold was the man walking behind her. My ex-boyfriend, the one I hadn't seen in over 3 years. The man I once loved, and did things with quietly, and thought had completely exited my orbit. I couldn't breathe for a few seconds. Phil gave my hand a gentle squeeze. "Do you want me to..." I shook my head, trying to stay calm. Elaine walked straight into the center of the garden and loudly announced in front of nearly 30 chatting guests, "Today isn't just about celebrating my grandchild. It's a chance to fix a mistake from the past. Everyone, meet Ian, the man Claire should have been with all along." The air froze. I turned to Ian, ready to speak, but he stepped ahead of Elaine, lifted his head, and said clearly and firmly, "No, I'm not here to get back with Claire. I'm here to end this ridiculous nonsense." The entire garden went silent. Ian looked directly at Elaine. "I've kept quiet long enough, but you've gone way too far." He turned to the crowd. "For the past 3 months, Elaine has messaged me almost every week, trying to convince me that Claire is lost, that her marriage is a mistake, and that I need to save her before it's too late." Elaine's face turned pale, but Ian didn't stop. "She told me Claire doesn't really love Phil, that this baby would be a burden, that I'm the only one, whoever made Claire truly live." She spun these absurd stories. I honestly felt like I was reading the script for a bad soap opera. I watched as all eyes turned toward Elaine. She froze, her lips barely holding on to a shaky, fake smile. Ian turned to me, looking into my eyes for the first time since he arrived. "Claire, I'm sorry for showing up unannounced, but I thought you deserved to know what your mother has done. And you deserve a baby shower that isn't ruined by her toxic need for control." He pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. "I printed all the messages in case she tries to deny it, but maybe that's no longer necessary." He nodded respectfully to Phil. "Sorry for the surprise, but I believe Claire and her baby deserve to be protected." Then he placed the envelope on the gift table, turned, and walked away. No one stopped him. Elaine stood frozen, her face flushed with shame, her eyes darting between anger and confusion. I stepped forward and looked directly at her. "It's not Ian's presence that disgusts me. It's the fact that you thought humiliating me in front of my friends, family, and husband was acceptable." I took a deep breath. "From this moment on, you are no longer part of this family." Elaine opened her mouth to say something, but Phil spoke first. "You should leave. And next time you plan to destroy a family, don't bring the one person willing to expose the truth. Elaine left in silence. No one walked her out. I turned back to the people who still stood by me. Olivia, my dad, Brett, Phil, and held them tightly, feeling lighter than I ever had. 3 days after that chaotic baby shower, I got a message from Brett. "Claire, I spoke with Elaine. You should know what she said." I didn't reply right away. That evening, after Phil had gone to bed, I stepped out onto the porch, opened my phone, and read Brett's follow-up. I asked her directly if she regretted anything, and her only response was, "I just want her to know she's no better than Olivia." I set the phone down, a cold breeze brushing the back of my neck like a slap. Elaine didn't think she was wrong. She wasn't angry about being exposed. She was angry because I didn't surrender. The next message shocked me even more. "I moved out this morning. I can't live with someone who treats real emotion as a threat to her reputation. And Olivia, she cut off all contact after that day too." It took me several minutes to breathe normally again. Elaine had lost Brett, lost Olivia, lost everything she once used to mask the emptiness inside her. 3 weeks later, when I went into labor, Elaine didn't show up. No messages, no calls, no congratulations. But I didn't feel the absence. I had Phil sitting beside me through 18 hours of labor, never letting go of my hand. I had my dad, holding his first grandchild with the kind of awe that felt like the whole world had just been reborn in his arms. And I had Olivia, who strung up every letter of "Welcome, baby Mason," in the hospital room like she was making up for all the birthdays I never had. Mason was born healthy, weighing just over 7 pounds, with his father's blue eyes and soft dark curls like mine when I was little. When the nurse placed him in my arms, I whispered, "Hello, little one. You're not a burden. You're the beginning." The months that followed were filled with exhaustion, sleepless nights, but never loneliness. Phil woke up every night to rock our son so I could sleep. My dad brought chicken soup every weekend. Olivia stopped by every Tuesday afternoon with something tiny for Mason, a knitted hat, baby socks, or a soft cloth book. Elaine? She vanished completely from our lives. I heard from Brett that she kept blaming everyone else, that I set her up, that Ian betrayed her trust, that the whole family had been manipulated by some drama. But this time, no one was listening. Brett officially filed for separation 2 months after Mason was born. Olivia moved out and cut ties completely. I knew that couldn't have been easy for either of them. They had stayed by her side for years, hoping she would change. But everyone has a limit. Only once during that entire time did Elaine leave a voicemail for me. Her voice was hoarse. "Claire, I didn't think it would go this far, but if it's better for you that I stay out of it, I'll disappear. I'm not asking for forgiveness, but I'm not apologizing either." I didn't delete the voicemail. I kept it, as a reminder that some people will never understand. And you don't need to wait for them to understand in order to live in peace. 1 year later, on Mason's first birthday, we held a small party in our backyard, the same garden where the baby shower took place. Phil reassembled the white backdrop, Olivia baked cupcakes, and my dad sang the birthday song completely off-key, making Mason laugh out loud. I sat in the middle of my people, watching my son take his first wobbly steps on the grass, and in that moment, I knew. I had done everything right. I didn't need my mother in that picture. I didn't need someone who only knew how to love when it made her shine. All I needed was the truth, and from that truth, I had built a life. Not perfect, but warm, bright, and full enough for a child to grow up never having to wonder, am I worthy of love? One crisp, early autumn afternoon, I carried Mason to the neighborhood park. He could walk steadily now, toddling through piles of fallen yellow leaves, occasionally turning back with a big smile. I sat on a bench with a warm coffee in hand, sunlight slipping through the leaves, lighting up his rosy cheeks. A strange feeling settled in my chest. Not just happiness, but a deep-rooted peace. Like after all these years, I had finally stepped outside the storm I'd been trapped in since I was a child. I don't remember exactly when I last saw Elaine. Maybe it was the day she left the baby shower in silence, her face pale from humiliation. She hasn't reached out since. No sign of remorse, no apology. But I'm no longer waiting for one. Elaine didn't know how to love without control. She didn't know how to celebrate others if it made her feel overshadowed. And she couldn't appreciate anyone who didn't serve the image she wanted to uphold for the world. Jealousy, manipulation, and fear of being left behind, they didn't just cost her me. She lost Brett, lost Olivia, lost the very family she once tried so hard to make look perfect in the eyes of others. I used to think isolation was the harshest punishment for a mother, but now I see it's not punishment. It's the natural consequence of a series of choices made without real love. I didn't cut ties out of revenge. I did it to protect what was growing inside me. Not just Mason, but myself. The part of me that had once been told I wasn't good enough, not worthy enough, not close enough to being Elaine's ideal daughter. Bill once said, when I was 6 months pregnant, "We don't have to repeat the circumstances we were raised in, Claire. We get to rewrite everything, from how we hold our child to how we answer their cries in the middle of the night." And he was right. Every night Mason cried. I didn't get angry. I picked him up, gently rocked him, and whispered, "Mom's here." Every time he stumbled, I didn't say, "That's what you get for not being careful." I said, "It's okay, try again." I'm not raising my child to avoid failure. I'm raising him to know that gentleness is not weakness. I also learned that cutting off a mother doesn't mean giving up on the idea of family. Family can be rebuilt with the people who choose to love you unconditionally without needing status or social media approval. I have Phil, who never uses silence to manipulate, who never makes me feel small. I have my dad, older now but never late when I need him. I have Olivia, my half-sister, but the one who understands and stands beside me more than anyone else ever has. And I have Mason, a child growing up, not under the shadow of expectations, but in the light of freedom. If there's one thing I want Mason to understand as he grows up, it's this. You don't have to pay for someone else's mistakes. And you don't have to prove you're worthy of love. Real love is unconditional. A little sparrow landed on the fence in front of me, then darted into the sky. I followed it with my eyes, smiling. Not everyone gets a happy ending with the person who gave them life, but everyone has the right to choose a new beginning, for themselves, for their child, and for a new definition of happiness. Claire's story is living proof that sometimes, in order to protect true happiness, we must walk away from the very person who gave us life. Jealousy and control are not love. And toxic relationships, even those tied by blood, can wound deeply. But with courage, conviction, and healthy love, anyone can rewrite their emotional legacy for the next generation, starting with one firm decision: to choose peace over pain. What do you think about Claire's journey and her brave decision? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more heartfelt stories and powerful lessons about family and life.